Hello, and welcome to this Masterclass Patents for Entrepreneurs. This is the first in the series. I will not go into all of the details here. See this as an overview. And if this interests you, there are more details to dig into. I call this How Not to Waste 5 million euros on patents, because that's exactly what I could have saved if I had known what I know today 20 years ago. During the last 2 decades, I've spent about 20 million euros on patents, and at least five of them were just mistakes I made. And that I'm hoping that by sharing this with you, if you have to make the same journey I did, you will not have to make these mistakes. My name is Ola Wassvik. I'm the CCO and the co-founder of Lightbringer, but I've spent the last 2 decades as a deep tech CTO. Background in physics, mainly optics and photonics. And I'm also an author on the side. So if you want to hear about how it is to actually be a deep tech founder, make sure you check out the book, A Game of Deep Tech. What I will be giving you here today is business advice. There are two sides to IP and patents. It's legal and business. What you will hear today is business advice. There is still the legal side, and you will need legal counsel as well, because in patents and IP, the details really matter. My background is as a founder of a couple of deep tech companies, but the one that we're mainly going to be taking experiences from here today is a company called Flatfrog that I founded about 20 years ago. While being the CTO there, we filed more than 300 patents, and we grew to a global licensing portfolio that ended up successfully licensing to more than 85% of the worldwide market while dealing with very large customers. We had a budget limited IP portfolio, and you may think that 20 million euros is a lot of budget, but it's essentially zero compared to the billions of dollars that our customers and competitors were spending on patents. So we had to be smart. Hopefully, the things I will share with you will allow you to be smart as well. This is my experience with patents the first 10 years. It is a very up and down journey. As an early stage founder, you will find patents very confusing. You will be in denial that it can be so expensive and confusing and uncertain, but it is, and you just have to accept it. Like many other things in life, just accept it and move on, and you will become a better person in a better place. And what really made the difference for me was when I figured out that I could model this as a game. And during my youth, I spent a lot of time in dark basement playing very complicated role-playing games, which kind of set me up well to be able to model it in a game way. And the first thing that I realized that I needed three different pieces to be able to truly make IP and patents work for me. And the first was the team, always most important. And this will be in everything you're building in your deep tech startup. It will be important, but the team comes first. Unless you have a team of highly skilled people that can actually develop things and bring new things to market and solve problems that previously were considered impossible, it's not until then that you will actually have any opportunity to file any patents. Secondly, and this is the most important one and the biggest mistake that I made and that I see that a lot of people are making, that you don't understand your total available market. You will have a completely different strategy if your total available market is 10 million euros or dollars, 100 million, or 1 billion. In the market I started out, the total market was about 100 million, but where we grew to later, the market was between 2 to 3 billion dollars. And the difference is massive in how you should think about patents and IP. Because if you're in a small market, for example, you're a niche medical device that the total world market is $20 million, you will not have to file very many patents. You will very likely want to keep most things secret instead, because the market is too small to make sense to spend a lot of money on IP. Lastly comes the technology. And this is something that a lot of deep tech founders overestimate how important their technology is to their patent protection. And let me tell you from experience, you can patent almost anything. It just needs to be a problem that no one has solved before and some kind of solution to that. The amount of, of innovative height that you need, if you have a good attorney and a good system backing you, is actually quite small. So think of it in this order: team first, then market, finally the. When you're playing a game, you always need and want the prize, because otherwise you wouldn't be playing. So in the game of patents and IP, it's all about money and growth. It's not about ego. It's not about having your name on a patent. That doesn't matter. It might matter to some of your engineers, and you need to make sure that that's not actually driving where you go. The reason why you're patenting, and this is a study from Harvard, there will also be a study from PitchBook later, where they've gone over 40,000 startups and scale-ups and see how patents affect them. And you do get a clear increase in sales. And why do you get an increase in sales? Because your customers want to reduce risk, especially your larger customers. And you having patent protection for your technology will actually make the customer more likely to buy from you. It will also scare them off from buying from your competition. At the same time, it instills a sense of premium in your technology. It essentially tells people you cannot get this technology anywhere else. And that's where you have these clear indications that sales increase after you have your patent. Same thing goes with venture capital. You have almost a 50% higher chance of getting venture capital funding if you have patents in your company versus if you don't. And same thing, venture capitalists want to reduce risk. They want to reduce the risk of someone else coming and copying you. And they also want to reduce the risk of your company failing and someone taking the patents with them or the IP with them. Because if you file a patent, that means that the technology now belongs to the company and not the individual. And that's a very important distinction, which is extremely important for venture capital. When you then go into fundraising, you raise more funds. And again, it's because the risk is reduced, so the venture capitalists are more likely to put in more money into your company. You at some point want to exit, and here again, just statistics, you raise more capital, you have a much higher chance of doing an IPO, and if you want to sell the company, the value is higher. And the importance of patents typically grows as your company grows. The amount of patents and the importance of patents and IP should grow with your business. If your business stalls, your patents should also stall. But if your business hopefully grows, your patent portfolio should grow because it protects the value of your company and it protects the technology. So now you know why you're playing, and there are a few basic rules. The next two slides will give you a lot of information. I will not go into detail about all of this. This will come in the second part, where we will go fully into detail, but I will give you the highlights here and the key things to make you actually successful. So let's start with the very basics. The very first basic is that patents are a negative right. And this means that just because you have a patent to your technology doesn't mean you can actually sell it or market it or produce it. It just means that for that specific solution, someone else is not allowed to sell, market, or produce. This also means that if you have multiple inventions or multiple new things about your product, you need multiple patents, and that's what creates patent portfolios. A single patent is very, very seldom enough, but it's quite enough to get your first investor on board. So again, depending on where you are in the cycle of your company, you should have different amounts of patents, and you likely also should have different types of patents. Then a very important thing, and this is especially important for spin-outs from universities, you can only patent undisclosed inventions. This means that if you published a paper or if you've been talking at a convention or similar, you have disclosed and the idea is now in the public domain and anyone can use it. So you have to patent before you disclose. You have to patent before you show people that are not under NDA. Very important. If you disclose before you patent, your patents are invalid. And when you file this patent, you actually have a grace period of 18 months before it becomes public. But that doesn't mean that you can stop working. That basically is your head start, because 18 months after you file your patent, it will become public to the world what you patented. And you need to have moved on from there. You need to have that year and a half as a head start. And of course, you won't stop innovating. So during those year and a half, you will have new ideas that can file new patents that then become disclosed 18 months later. And here comes a very, very important point. Just because you invented something doesn't mean you own it. The person who owns the patent, owns the intellectual property of a certain thing, is the one or the company that filed it first. Very big misconceptions that just because you invented something, you actually have the rights. You don't have the rights unless you have patented them. You can also, of course, disclose them, but then the rights belong to the world. NDAs are a very tricky thing. You should have NDAs because that means that you can show people without actually disclosing, but they don't actually stop the person you're showing to, or the company you're showing to, or the customer you're showing to patent your technology. You may even have an IP clause in your NDA. Still, it only stops them in theory. And especially if you're selling to large companies, they have a policy of patenting anything that they would like to do business on, because they will be doing and investing a lot more money than you will into this technology. So as an example, we're going to sell to a very large customer. We were very happy when we won the deal. And 18 months later, we saw that they filed a bunch of patents around our technology to secure their investment, because they were spending almost 50 times as much on the product compared to what we were doing. All their sales, all their marketing, all their development around it. So the only way you can protect yourself here is either patent first or don't disclose as much. And when you have that first patent, whether you file it in the UK, the US, Sweden, or Spain, it doesn't matter. You have instant potential global protection. And you can wait for up to 2.5 years before you decide which countries you actually want to go into. So make sure you get that priority filing in quick. And importantly, you can only have one invention in each granted patent. So if you have 3 novel things, you actually need 3 patents. And if you can't afford to patent them all, try to keep them as secret as possible until you've raised funding so you can actually afford to protect them. But likely you need something to even get the investors interested in the first place. There's something called prior art that will show up a lot when you talk about patents. And that's basically anything that came before you. Because if you're not novel compared to the prior art, you cannot get a patent to it. Prior art is typically patents when you come from the patent office, but it can also be articles or products that are on the market. And then you do what's called a novelty search to check, am I actually novel? And this is the first thing that you should do. You should describe your technology. You can do it on the Lightbringer platform, and then get a novelty search for it and see, am I actually doing something new? And this way, you will also typically discover who your competition is. Finally, there's this thing called freedom to operate. This is when you check, can I actually sell, market, and produce my product? And this you do when you need it. You do it when you're going to take an investment. You do it when you are about to launch a product to check, am I going to be in trouble, or can I just launch this product? These were the very basics. I will quickly just show you that there are a lot more depth here. I won't go into this today, but there are a lot of tricks you can do with patents that make them much more powerful. And if you're interested in this, check out the next episode. I said that a patent could be elegant or simple or whatever you want to call it. The most important thing you should focus on when thinking if there's something you should patent is the problems that you're solving. Because if you're an innovative company solving problems that no one has done before, you have loads of opportunities for patents. It's very, very seldom that I go in and coach a company and don't come up with 10 patentable ideas, because you will have a lot of them. And then you prioritize them, rank them, and decide based on a budget, what can we afford to protect? A large company will, of course, protect everything. You can't. You have to be smart about this. You don't have all the money in the world. So you need to be smart and do it in a good, staggered way, starting small and growing with investment and business. But at the same time, once you've solved the problem, it becomes easy for anyone who sees it. So as soon as you start disclosing the solutions to your problem, others will copy you. And you are not alone. It's others are inventing the same thing as you, and copying someone is immensely easier than actually building it when you're on the cutting edge or the bleeding edge. So let me give you an example. We're developing a product. It took us a year and a half of R&D, and then it took us a year to actually convince the customer to buy the product. And then it took another year to get it into production and out on the market. So here we are, more than 3 years from where we started. And after we launched, our Chinese competitor was on the market with a product that was inferior to ours, but still looked similar in 4 months. That's how easy it is. Once you ship a product on the market, someone will get a hold of it. And if you think you can keep your technology secrets when it's out in the market, unless you're in defense and have the best security, it's not going to happen. People are going to figure out how you do it, and they will copy it. And that's when you bring in patents. And then you have to remember that you don't actually own the rights. It's the first to file that owns it. Finally, a lot of inventors and founders have this view of how it's noble to go to court and beat your competition. Trust me, the very last place you want to be is in a courtroom, either using your patents or defending against someone else's patents. Because if you go there, very likely you will end up in Texas, because you're a Western company and you're going to be copied or similar by an Asian company. And where do you go to defend yourself or attack them? You go to Texas, because it's most favorable for you. And it's going to be a jury trial, and you're going to be sitting there explaining your semiconductor or life science or nanotechnology invention to a bunch of farmers and accountants and convince them that you're better than the competition. It's very, very expensive. A regular, like run-of-the-mill lawsuit where you are doing well will cost you between $3 to $10 million. A single one. So you absolutely don't want to go there. So how do you avoid it? You have the best hand. You have the strongest portfolio, so that people will not want to take you to court. Because, of course, they will be spending an equal amount of money. And if they have a 10% chance of winning, they will rather settle with you and sort it out of court. And that's where you want to be. Don't go to court. It's the very last place you want to be. Let's end this with a little bit of basic strategy to give you kind of an idea on how to get started and how to think around patents. The very, very first question you need to ask yourself is, why am I patenting? And there are a number of good reasons. But if you don't know which reason it is, you will probably build the wrong portfolio and patent the wrong things. There are typically 2 different types of portfolios: a licensing portfolio or a defensive portfolio. A licensing portfolio is very common in semiconductors, in telecom, in wearables. There are a bunch of them where you basically say, I've invented this technology, but I want others to build it, because setting up a $1 billion semiconductor production line isn't my thing. That means that you essentially have to tell the world how you do it, or at least your customers, in detail. And that means that you will quite often need a lot of patents, and the value of your company will be around your patent portfolio. On the other hand, most people are not doing a licensing model. Most people, I would say at least 8 out of 10 companies, are doing a defensive model. They want to, 1, be able to sell their own product, 2, stop someone else from copying their product, and 3, having their roadmap clear to make sure that no one else blocks you from doing what you want to do. You need a much smaller portfolio with a different types of patents in them. And if you start by doing a license style portfolio and you're intending to build a defensive model, you've told the world too much and you've spent too much money. On the other hand, if you're building a defensive portfolio and then want to go license it, you will be worth a fraction of what you could be worth. Very early on, you typically get patents for investment, and this is risk reduction. Whether it's soft money or VC money, they will try every way they can to disqualify you. And one of the ways of disqualifying a deep tech company is saying they don't have enough protection. And early on, typically a single patent and a good strategy is fine to get your first investment. But as you go up in the rounds, when you reach your Series A, Series B, you will be required to have a lot more patents, but you also have a lot more money. So see how this scales with investment and business. Finally, you may come to the stage where you actually want to exit. And this is where patents can actually boost your valuation significantly. Like when you see an exit opportunity coming up, you can preemptively boost your valuation by filing a bunch of patents, especially if it's an M&A where a large company is acquiring you. You can instantly get more value in the company just by filing patents. They don't need to be granted. There are also other uses. You might come in a competitive situation. You might need sales leverage. There are a bunch of other things that can go into the details. Then, once you've decided why you're doing this, you should do a budget. This might sound very obvious, but most deep tech founders don't do a patent budget. And it's very silly. Imagine going to your board and saying, no, I'm not going to do a budget for my R&D project. They will be very unhappy, and they should be equally unhappy if you don't have a budget for patents. Patents are expensive, and even if Lightbringer is bringing the price down 50%, it will still be expensive. So make sure you have a budget and make sure you make conscious decisions. Don't go into Peru just because someone made a trip there and said there's a potential market for us. You also need to balance the amount of trade secrets and patents you have. You should not be patenting all your technology unless it's very visible. If you're a pure mechanical technology company where everyone can see what you're doing, of course you need to patent it. But in your typical deep tech startup, a balance of 50-50 between trade secrets and patents is typically a good starting point. And all patents are trade secrets to start with. So you start by identifying all your trade secrets, and then you select the ones that you choose to patent. And you select them on the basis of how likely is it for someone else to actually find out what we do. And there will be a balance, how many trade secrets versus how many patents. If you're a very software-heavy company, you will have much fewer patents. If you're a very hardware-heavy company, it tilts over to a lot more patents than trade secrets. This is something where I'm happy to help you out for your company to figure out what is a good balance. So now we go into the actual execution of building your patent portfolio. And this is where it gets very complex and where I'd be happy to help out more. The first thing you need to understand that there are different conceptual levels of patents. You start on the pure concept level. And these are patents like if you see about once every year, Apple says they've patented the phone again. That's a conceptual patent for a new product line they're looking to do. And you should do the same. A conceptual patent basically covers everything. It puts a stake to the entire land that you're intending to dig in. Below that, you have the product level. That's on the actual product that you're launching right now. But in the future, you will launch different products and they will have different solutions. One thing that is very commonly overlooked are the system patents. These are basically your products functioning with other products and making 1 + 1 = 3. Finally, you have where most engineers default. This is the detailed solution down inside the product that you might actually want to keep a trade secret. But if you have an excellent component solution that can be reused for other products or other systems, this is where you find them. But you should typically have a variety of these patents. And if you're filing your very first patent, please don't make it a component patent. Start on the other end and make sure that you have maximized business value and investor value. And as you grow, you then need to determine, okay, where do I have gaps in my portfolio? Where can competition actually come in and either block us or copy what we're doing. So you need to be conscious about competitor movement. And there's something called monitoring that you can do to kind of keep a track on how this happened, because there's a lot of patents being filed. You don't have to look through them all personally. There are systems, including Lightbringer, that can monitor these types of patents for you. Finally, keep your trade secrets secret. This might be one of the biggest mistakes that deep tech companies do. They've identified a number of trade secrets, but they haven't told the organization what they are. And especially they haven't told the sales team what they are. So now the sales team is out trying to win a deal, and they divulge two very secret trade secrets because they didn't know that they couldn't talk about it, because they wanted everything possible to get the deal over the line. Make sure that you are aware of what your trade secrets are, and that the team that mainly is interfacing with customers also are aware, so that they don't talk about it. And finally, don't patent algorithms. Far too many times do I see detailed algorithm patents that are super easy to circumvent. So this is again an engineer who thinks they have a brilliant solution. But the thing is that there are 100 other algorithms that work maybe 95% as efficiently, and you've just told your worst competitor exactly how you do stuff. Thank you very much for this. And repeat again, you can watch this on YouTube as many times as you want, and feel free to share it. And if you have further questions that you don't want to ask right here, send me a LinkedIn message or